Hey guys, glad you could make it. Tonight, we're journeying to the very heart of Roman power and religion, to a small, unassuming temple in the Forum that holds the destiny of the entire empire. We are here to look at the life of Rome's most honoured and most endangered women, the Vestal Virgins. We have this image of serene, powerful priestesses, living lives of immense privilege and spiritual grace, revered by all. But the brutal reality is that the life of a Vestal was a 30-year sentence in a gilded cage. It was a life of unimaginable pressure, of obsessive ritual, and of walking a constant, terrifying tightrope where a single misstep, a single broken vow, meant being buried alive in a dark room beneath the earth. If these slow journeys into the forgotten corners of the past help you find a moment of calm in your own busy world, a simple like or a subscribe is always a wonderful and deeply appreciated gesture. It really helps the channel grow. And as our community continues to gather, it's always fascinating to see who is joining us from around the globe. So please feel free to share where you're listening from as you settle in. Alright. It's time to let the demands of the day fade away. Find a comfortable position, let your body feel heavy and relaxed, and take a slow, deep breath in, and let it all go with a sigh. Good. The year is 50 AD. The city of Rome is the capital of the world. You are 6 years old, your name is Livia, and your life is about to be stolen from you in the name of the gods. The day starts like any other. You are in the sun-drenched courtyard of your family's villa on the Palatine Hill, playing a game with knuckle bones. Your life is one of immense patrician privilege. Your father is a senator, your world a gentle bubble of comfort, protected by wealth and status. Then, a hush falls over the household. A procession is arriving. It is led by a man in a magnificent purple-bordered toga, his head covered. This is the Pontifex Maximus, the High Priest of Rome, the most powerful religious figure in the empire, and he has come for you. You are brought before him by your father, whose face is a strange, unreadable mixture of immense pride and profound sadness. You do not understand what is happening. The great priest looks down at you, his expression stern and assessing. He is here to fill a vacancy in the most sacred college of priestesses in Rome. A Vestal has died, and a no one must be chosen. The selection process is a lottery, a drawing of lots from a list of 20 eligible young girls from Rome's noblest families. Your name has been drawn. Or perhaps more accurately, your father has ensured your name was on that list, seeing it as the ultimate honor for his family. The Pontifex Maximus performs the ancient ritual of captio, the capture. He takes your hand. His grip is firm and cold. He recites the ancient formula, his voice a low, solemn drone that echoes in the silent courtyard. "I take you, Amata," he says, using the ceremonial title, "to be a priestess of Vesta, who will perform the sacred rites, which it is the law for a Vestal to perform on behalf of the Roman people. He is not asking, he is declaring. In that moment, you cease to be Livia, daughter of a senator. You are now a thing of the state, a sacred object captured for divine service. You look back at your mother. Her face is a mask of tears, but she does not protest. This is the will of the gods and of men. You are led away from your home, from everything you have ever known. You will not see your parents again for 30 years, except as a distant, revered figure in a public ceremony. The life you were meant to have, marriage, children, the life of a Roman matron, has just been erased. You are being led to your new home, your new family, your new prison. It is the house of the Vestals, a grand and beautiful palace next to the small, round temple of Vesta in the heart of the Roman Forum. You are a child, your mind filled with a terrifying confusion, and you have just been handed a life sentence of sacred duty. It's the ancient world's most prestigious and irreversible career move, and your 6-year-old self didn't even get a say in the matter. You enter a world of women, a world of silence, and a world of unyielding ritual. The house of the Vestals, the Atrium Vestae, is a magnificent 3-story palace built around a long colonnaded courtyard with gardens and pools. It is a place of immense wealth and beauty, but its rules are as rigid as the stone it is built from. You are now in the care of the Virgo Vestalis Maxima, the chief Vestal, an old stern woman who has served the goddess for nearly 50 years. She and the other 5 Vestals are your new mothers, sisters, and teachers. Your first act of initiation is another severing. Your long hair, the pride of a young Roman girl, is cut off in a solemn ceremony and hung from a sacred tree as an offering. You are then dressed in the Vestal's uniform, a simple, archaic style of white linen robe, a woolen headband, and a white veil, the suffabulum. The clothes are heavy and strange. They mark you as separate, as belonging to the goddess. You have been stripped of your personal identity and clothed in a sacred one. Your life is now divided into 3 10-year periods. For the first 10 years, you are a novice, a student. Your days are a relentless drill of learning. You must learn the immensely complex rituals of the Vesta cult, word for word, gesture for gesture. A single mistake in a prayer, a single incorrect movement in a ceremony, is not just an error. It is a vitium, a ritual flaw that could anger the gods and endanger Rome. The pressure to be perfect is absolute. You are taught by the older Vestals, who are strict and unforgiving teachers. There is no room for childish games or idleness. Your mind is being systematically filled with the sacred software of your new profession. You must memorize thousands of lines of prayer and chant. You must learn the precise recipes for sacred substances, the exact timing of festivals, and the complex rules of ritual purity that govern every moment of your existence. You are learning to be a living vessel of tradition, a perfect and unchanging link in a chain that stretches back to the founding of Rome itself. It's like being in the world's most exclusive religious boarding school, where the final exams are graded by the gods, and failing has catastrophic consequences for the entire civilization. You are no longer a child. You are an apprentice to a divine mystery. After 10 years of grueling study, you are a young woman of 16. Your apprenticeship is over. You are now a full priestess. Your next 10 years will be spent performing the duties you have so painstakingly learned. And at the heart of those duties, the single, terrifying, all-consuming responsibility of your life is the tending of the sacred flame. In the center of the small, round temple of Vesta, a fire burns. It has been burning day and night for 1,000 years. This is not just any fire. It is the Ignis Vesti, the sacred hearth fire of the Roman state. It is the symbol of Rome's permanence, its eternitas. As long as this fire burns, Rome will stand. If it goes out, it is a sign of divine abandonment, a catastrophic omen that the city is doomed. And you are its guardian. You and the other Vestals are divided into watches. Throughout the day, and more importantly, throughout the long, silent hours of the night, 2 of you must always be on duty in the temple, awake, alert, and watching the flame. The temple is a small, dark, and intensely holy space. There is no statue of the goddess Vesta within. Her presence is the fire itself. The only sound is the soft, hungry crackle of the burning wood. Your job is to ensure that sound never, ever stops. You must feed the fire with wood from a sacred grove, wood that must be oak and must be free of any blemishes. You must keep the temple and the hearth swept clean with a special ritual broom. It is a life of profound monotony, a constant, repetitive cycle of watching and waiting. But it is a monotony that is perched on the edge of a knife. The greatest fear of your life is falling asleep on your watch. It is the ultimate dereliction of duty. If a Vestal is found to have let the fire go out through neglect, the punishment is swift and brutal. She is taken to a dark, sealed room and scourged by the Pontifex Maximus himself. It is a punishment of immense shame, a physical beating for a spiritual failure. The fire is not just a symbol, it is a living entity, a demanding and temperamental deity. It requires constant attention, constant vigilance. You spend a third of your life in its warm, hypnotic presence. You learn to read its language, the colour of the flames, the sound of its crackle, the smell of the smoke. You are a priestess, yes, but you are also a highly specialised technician, a master of a single, crucial, and very unforgiving technology. Your life is a 30-year-long camping trip where the consequences of letting the campfire go out are the potential collapse of an empire. You are a guardian of the flame, and the weight of that duty is a constant heavy presence in your heart. Your life, however, is not entirely confined to the shadows of the temple. In fact, you enjoy a level of freedom and public prestige that is utterly unique for a woman in Roman society. Your person is sacrosanct, inviolable. To injure a Vestal, or to obstruct her in her duties, is a capital crime punishable by death. When you walk through the crowded streets of Rome, you are preceded by a lictor, an official attendant who clears the way for you, a privilege normally reserved for the highest magistrates. Everyone, from the common plebeian to the consul himself, must make way for you. Unlike other Roman women who are under the lifelong legal authority, the manus, of their fathers or husbands, you are legally autonomous. You can own property, inherit a fortune, and write your own will. You can testify in court without taking an oath, as your word is considered unimpeachable. You are, in essence, an honorary man in the eyes of the law. You are a powerful and influential figure. You manage the vast wealth of the Temple of Vesta. You are a keeper of important state documents, treaties, and the wills of powerful men like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, which are stored in the temple for safekeeping. You are a state banker, a notary, and a living safety deposit box. You also hold a strange and beautiful power, the power of pardon. If a man who has been condemned to death is being led to his execution, and he happens to cross your path, his life is automatically spared. This is not a power you can wield intentionally. The encounter must be purely accidental. But it reinforces your status as a vessel of divine grace, a walking, talking symbol of clemency. You have seats of honour at the public games, at the gladiatorial contests in the Colosseum, and at the chariot races in the Circus Maximus. You are a public figure, a celebrity, a constant and revered presence in the life of the city. But this privilege is a double-edged sword. You are constantly in the public eye. Your every action, your every word is scrutinized. You must maintain an aura of serene, untouchable dignity at all times. And the privileges you enjoy are a direct result of the life you have sacrificed. You can own property, but you have no family to leave it to. You are free from the control of a husband, but you can never know the intimacy of marriage or the joy of having children. You are surrounded by the adoration of the Roman people, but you are profoundly and institutionally alone. You are the most liberated woman in Rome, and also the most constrained, a living paradox of power and sacrifice. Your duties extend far beyond the eternal flame. Your life is a tapestry of ancient, intricate, and sometimes bizarre rituals that are essential to the spiritual health of the state. One of your most important tasks is the preparation of the mola salsa, the salted flour. This is a sacred mixture of coarse ground, emmer, wheat, flour, and salt, which is sprinkled on the heads of all animals before they are sacrificed in any state religious ceremony. It is the holy seasoning of Roman religion, and only you can make it. The process is governed by a strict, unchangeable recipe, a secret passed down from Vestal to Vestal. Another crucial duty is fetching the sacred water. The water used in the temple of Vesta for purifying the temple and for use in rituals cannot come from the city's aqueducts. It must be living water drawn from a sacred spring. Every morning you must walk in a solemn procession to the spring of Juturna, a holy site in the forum, and fill a special vessel, a futile, which is a clay jar with a wide mouth and a narrow base that prevents it from being set down. This is intentional. The water is so sacred that it cannot be allowed to rest on the impure ground. It must be brought directly back to the temple. It's a design that is deeply symbolic and profoundly impractical, ensuring you can never take a break on your way back to the office. You are also the guardians of a collection of mysterious sacred objects, the Pinora Imperii, the pledges of empire. These are a set of ancient, powerful relics stored in the innermost, most secret part of the temple, the Pinus Vestae. No man, not even the Pontifex Maximus, is ever allowed to enter this space or to see these objects. Their identity is a closely guarded secret, but they are believed to include the Palladium, a legendary statue of Pallas Athena that Aeneas was said to have rescued from the fall of Troy. The safety of these objects is believed to be directly linked to the safety of Rome itself. You are not just a priestess. You are the high security guardian of the nation's most precious and powerful magical artifacts. Your life is a constant performance of these sacred tasks. The rhythm of your days is dictated not by your own needs or desires, but by the relentless timetable of religious obligation. You are a cog in a great cosmic machine, a machine that runs on repetition, on precision, on the perfect execution of ancient formulas. There is no room for creativity, no space for personal expression. Your role is to be a perfect, unchanging vessel of tradition. The work is not intellectually stimulating. It is the opposite. It is designed to empty the mind, to replace individual thought with the muscle memory of ritual. It is a life of immense importance and of a profound, soul-crushing and holy monotony. You are now in the third and final decade of your service. Your first 10 years were as a student, your second 10 as a worker. Now, from the age of 36 to 46, you are a teacher. It is your duty to pass on the vast, complex body of knowledge you have acquired to the young novices who have just been captured from their families. You have become Brother Anselm from our scribe story, the stern, unforgiving instructor. You see the fear and confusion in the eyes of the young girls, and you remember your own, but you have no room for pity. The traditions must be preserved, flawlessly. The survival of Rome depends on it. You drill them relentlessly on the prayers, on the rituals, on the duties of the flame. You punish their mistakes with a sharp word or a painful penance. You are not being cruel, you are being responsible. You are forging them into the same strong, disciplined, and reliable instruments that you were forged into. But as you look at these young faces, you are also confronted with the life you never had. They are the age you would have been when you married, when you had your first child. You see in them the ghost of your own lost secular life. Your position now is one of great authority and influence. As a senior Vestal, you are a respected voice in the college. You advise the Pontifex Maximus. Your opinion is sought on matters of religious law and public morality. You have become a matriarch of the state religion, a figure of immense dignity and power, but you are also a prisoner of that dignity. You are a living symbol of Roman purity, and as such, you are under constant, unforgiving scrutiny. Every Roman citizen feels they have a stake in your virtue. A rumour, a whisper of impropriety can spread through the city like a fire. You learn to live a life of perfect, unassailable propriety. You guard your words, your glances, your every public action. The pressure is immense. You are not a person. You are an icon of chastity, of duty, of the ideal Roman woman, a woman who has sacrificed all personal desire for the good of the state. You are revered, but you are not loved. You are an object of profound religious awe, a statue that happens to breathe. The loneliness of your position is absolute. You are surrounded by your sister Vestals, but even within those walls, there is a hierarchy, a formality, that prevents true, unguarded intimacy. You are the high priestess of a family hearth, but you have no family of your own. The unthinkable has happened. A rumour has taken root in the city, a rumour as poisonous as a viper. It concerns one of your sister Vestals, a young woman named Cornelia. She is accused of incestum, the breaking of her sacred vow of chastity. The accusation is a catastrophe. It is not a private matter of morality. It is a public crisis, a pollution of the state's sacred integrity. It is a sign that the gods are angry, and a cause for that anger. The city is gripped by a fever of anxiety and fear. Crops have been poor. There has been a fire in the forum. These are not seen as random events. They are seen as symptoms of the cosmic imbalance caused by the Vestal's alleged crime. A trial is convened. It is not a public trial. It is a grim internal affair conducted by the College of Pontiffs, presided over by the Pontifex Maximus. Cornelia is brought before them. She proclaims her innocence, but her accuser, a spurned suitor from her past, presents a compelling, if circumstantial, case. The evidence is flimsy, a whispered conversation, a gift of a poem. But in a case like this, the accusation itself is almost as damning as a conviction. The city needs a scapegoat for its anxieties, a ritual cleansing to restore the peace with the gods, the Pax Deorum. You and the other Vestals are witnesses, but you are also under suspicion. Could you have known? Did you fail in your duty to supervise your sister? A cloud of collective guilt hangs over the Atrium Vestae. The trial is swift, the pontiffs deliberate. The Pontifex Maximus, his face a grim, unreadable mask, delivers the verdict. Guilty. Cornelia's fate is sealed. The city will have its sacrifice. The stain must be washed away, not with water, but with a life. The day of the punishment is a day of profound and terrible theatre. It is a public funeral for a woman who is still alive. Cornelia is stripped of her sacred headband and her robes. She is dressed in the garb of a mourner. She is placed on a closed litter like a corpse and carried in a silent, solemn procession through the stunned, silent crowds of the forum. You and the other Vestals follow the litter. Your faces veiled, your hearts cold with a mixture of horror, pity, and a terrifying selfish relief that it was not you. The procession makes its way to a place outside the city walls, the Campus Sceleratus, the evil field here. A small underground chamber has been dug. Inside is a simple couch, a single lamp, and a meagre portion of bread, water, milk, and oil. This is the final grotesque hypocrisy of the law, because a Vestal's body is sacred. Her blood cannot be shed. She cannot be executed. So she is to be abandoned, with provisions, in a room, and the earth is to be sealed over her. The law maintains its fiction. She's not being killed. She's simply being left. If Vesta believes her to be innocent, the goddess will surely save her. Cornelia descends a ladder into the dark chamber. She does not weep. She does not protest. She walks to her living tomb with a silent, terrifying dignity. The ladder is removed. The masons move in. The sound of stone on stone is the only sound as they seal the entrance. Then the earth is piled on top, until there is no sign that the chamber ever existed. It is done. The pollution has been buried. The city can breathe again. But you will forever be haunted by the image of that young woman, alone in the darkness, waiting for the lamp to burn out. You have just witnessed the ultimate price of your sacred honor. Your 30 years of service are complete. You are now 46 years old. On a bright, clear morning, you undergo your final ceremony, the exauguratio. The Pontifex Maximus formally releases you from your vows to the goddess Vesta. You are free. You are now a private citizen. You can, if you choose, leave the house of the Vestals, where you have lived for your entire adult life. You can even marry. The state will provide you with a generous pension, and your status as a retired Vestal makes you one of the most respected and eligible women in all of Rome. It is a strange and disorienting freedom. For the first time since you were 6 years old, your days are your own. There is no bell to call you to prayer, no sacred flame to watch, no rituals to perform. Some retired Vestals do marry, often to powerful senators, their prestige a valuable asset to any political family. But many, perhaps most, do not. They have lived for so long in a world of women, a world of quiet, ordered ritual, that the noisy, chaotic world of marriage and family life seems alien and undesirable. Many choose to remain in the house of the Vestals, living as honoured and respected teachers and mentors to the younger priestesses. You stand in the courtyard of the Atrium Vestae, the place that has been your home, your school, and your prison. You look at the novices, their young faces so full of fear and focus, and you see yourself. You think of the long, silent nights spent watching the flame. You think of the weight of the sacred water vessel in your hands. You think of the terrifying dignity of Cornelia, walking to her tomb. Your life has not been your own. It has been a long, slow, and sometimes terrible sacrifice on the altar of Rome. The life of a Vestal Virgin was a profound contradiction. She was the most powerful and liberated woman in a patriarchal society, and she was also its most controlled and constrained. She was a living symbol of the city's purity and permanence, a status that granted her immense honour. But that honour came at the cost of her personal life, her fertility, and sometimes her very existence. She was a priestess, a banker, a guardian of secrets, and a potential human sacrifice. She was a woman who was not a woman, an individual who belonged entirely to the state. And in her silent, vigilant, and 30-year-long watch over a single sacred flame, she held the very heart of Rome in her hands. A day in the life of a medieval castle's Gong-Farmer. We're heading back to the age of chivalry, to a magnificent medieval castle with its towering stone walls and noble knights. But we're not visiting the Great Hall or the armory. We're heading down, way down, to the bottom of the castle to look at the life of its most essential and most reviled worker, the Gong-Farmer. If you've stayed with me through this first story, I'm glad it's brought you a moment of peace. If you'd like to help this little community of ours keep growing, A simple like or subscribe is always appreciated, and I'd still love to know where you're listening from. It's been wonderful seeing voices from all over the world join in. We might hear the name and think of a farmer who looks after a set of musical gongs, but the brutal reality is that gong was the medieval word for privy, and a Gong-Farmer was the official emptier of the castle's toilets. It was a job that was surprisingly well paid, but it was also the most disgusting, dangerous, and socially isolating occupation imaginable. A career spent literally at the bottom of the feudal system. The year is 1380. The castle is a formidable stone fortress in the English countryside. The sun has just set, and your workday is about to begin. Your day starts when everyone else's ends. You are a Gong-Farmer, or a nightman, and the most important rule of your trade is that you work in the dark. This is not for your convenience. It is for everyone else's. Your job is a necessary evil, a foul but essential service that the good, decent, and hygienically challenged people of this castle would rather not see, hear, or most of all, smell. You live in a small, isolated cottage at the very edge of the castle grounds, downwind from everyone and everything. Your family has held this position for 3 generations. It's not exactly a noble lineage, but it's steady work. You wake not to the crowing of a rooster, but to the deep, resonant toll of the castle bell signalling Compline, the last prayer of the evening. That is your cue. While the knights, ladies, and servants are settling into their beds, you are just beginning your shift. You dress in your work clothes, a set of old, hardened leather breeches and a tunic that have long since given up trying to be any colour other than a dark, mottled brown. These are not just clothes. They are a second skin, a suit of armour against the filth that is your constant companion. The leather is stiff and smells faintly, perpetually of your trade, a smell that no amount of scrubbing can ever truly remove. Your wife hands you a small bundle, a piece of hard, dark bread and a chunk of even harder cheese. She doesn't kiss you goodbye. Not when you're dressed for work. She just gives you a nod, her face a familiar mask of resignation and a quiet, weary affection. You step out into the cool night air. The castle looms against the starry sky, a great, sleeping giant of stone. A few torches flicker on its walls, but for the most part, it is a place of deep shadows. This is your domain, the night. You head to your workshop, a small, sturdy shed next to your cottage. This is where you keep the tools of your trade. There is a large, 2-wheeled cart, which you and your apprentice, your own shorter, younger son, now learning the family business, have spent the afternoon preparing, greasing its axles to ensure it runs as silently as possible. There are shovels of various sizes, a long-handled rake, several large wooden buckets bound with iron hoops, and coils of thick, sturdy rope. It looks like the equipment of a common labourer, a ditch digger, or a well digger, but you know the truth. These are the instruments of a very specific and very unpleasant form of excavation. You are a miner, but the substance you excavate is not gold or silver. It is the accumulated history of the castle's digestion. Your first task of the night is to clean the castle's main latrine block, the series of garderobes that serve the soldiers' barracks. A garderobe is a simple, elegant, and deeply flawed piece of medieval engineering. It is a small stone room, a privy, with a wooden bench that has a hole in it. This hole opens directly onto a vertical shaft that leads down the outside of the castle wall to a pit at the bottom. It is a gravity-powered toilet. And you are the man who has to deal with the consequences of that gravity. You and your son begin the silent journey, pulling the heavy cart across the castle grounds. You move through the shadows, two ghosts on a grim errand. The guards on the wall know you. They avert their eyes as you pass, offering a gruff nod but no conversation. You are a necessary part of this world, but you are not truly a part of it. You are the cleaner of their filth, a living reminder of the one bodily function that a knight's chivalry and a lady's grace cannot disguise. You arrive at the base of the great curtain wall. You look up at the dark stone, to the series of small jutting structures that are the privies. You take a deep breath, steeling yourself. It's time to go to work. The work itself is a science of filth, a series of precise and practiced steps designed to make a disgusting job slightly less so. You are working at the bottom of the garderobe shaft, in the cesspit. This is not just a hole in the ground. It is a carefully constructed stone-lined pit designed to contain the waste. Over the course of a year, this pit is filled with a semi-solid mass of human waste, kitchen scraps, and anything else that the soldiers found convenient to throw down the hole. Your job is to empty it. You begin by setting up a wooden tripod over the pit. From this, you will hang a lantern, its flickering, uncertain light casting long, dancing shadows. The light is not just for illumination. It is a vital piece of safety equipment. The decomposing waste in the pit releases a noxious cocktail of gases: methane, ammonia, and hydrogen sulfide. These are the foul airs, and they can be deadly. A high concentration can knock a man unconscious in seconds, leaving him to suffocate at the bottom of the pit. The flame of your lantern is your early warning system. If the flame begins to flicker and die, it means the air is bad, and you must get out immediately. It's the medieval equivalent of a canary in a coal mine, but your mine is infinitely more disgusting. You don't go into the pit yourself unless you absolutely have to. That is a job for the summer, when the pit is drier and the contents have had time to compost down into a less aggressive substance. For this wet winter cleaning, you work from the edge. You take your longest handled shovel, a tool that looks like a giant long-necked spoon, and you begin the grim task of excavation. You scoop up the heavy, foul-smelling sludge and dump it into one of the large wooden buckets. The smell is an almost physical assault, a thick, eye-watering miasma that you have learned to endure, but never to ignore. You breathe through your mouth, your face a mask of practiced indifference. When a bucket is full, you and your son attach it to a rope, and using a simple winch, you haul it up and out of the pit. The bucket is then emptied into your cart. Scoop, lift, haul, dump. Scoop, lift, haul, dump. The rhythm is slow, heavy, and monotonous. For hours, this is your entire world. The small circle of lantern light, the dark, gaping mouth of the pit, the weight of the shovel in your hands, and the constant overwhelming smell. There is no conversation. There is only the sound of the shovel scraping against stone, the creak of the winch, and the wet, sloppy sound of the waste being dumped into the cart. You are not a farmer of gongs. You are a dredger of the abyss. Not all of your work is so straightforward. Sometimes the job requires a more intimate approach. One of the garderobe shafts in the Lord's private apartments is blocked. This is a common problem. A servant may have accidentally dropped a bundle of laundry down the shaft, or a child may have lost a toy. The blockage is halfway up the 60-foot stone-lined chute, and it cannot be cleared from the bottom or the top. Someone has to go in, and that someone is you. This is the most dangerous and most feared part of your job. It is also the part that pays the best. Clearing a blocked shaft is a specialist task that carries a significant bonus payment. You and your son set up your equipment at the top of the shaft, inside the Lord's privy. You anchor a heavy rope to a crossbeam in the ceiling. You tie another, thinner rope around your waist. This will be your lifeline, held by your son. You light a small enclosed lantern and attach it to your belt. You take a deep breath, trying to calm the frantic beating of your heart. You are about to be lowered headfirst into a dark, narrow, and unimaginably foul-smelling stone tube. Your son begins to lower you. The world turns upside down. The rough stone walls of the shaft scrape against your leather tunic. The darkness is absolute, broken only by the small swinging circle of your lantern light. The smell is a concentrated, suffocating horror. You are descending into the belly of the beast, into the castle's digestive tract. You try not to think about what is coating the walls you are brushing against. You try not to think about the rats that almost certainly live in here. You focus only on the task. After about 30 feet, your lantern illuminates the blockage. It is a mess of sodden rags, straw, and other unidentifiable objects, all packed together into a solid, stubborn plug. You shout up to your son to hold the rope. Hanging there, upside down in the darkness, you take a small, hooked tool from your belt, and you begin the grim work of picking the blockage apart. You pull out handfuls of the foul, wet material, and let it drop down the shaft. It is slow, claustrophobic, and deeply unpleasant work. You can feel your throat tightening from the foul air. You know you only have a limited amount of time before the gases overcome you. Finally, with a sudden, wet whoosh, the blockage gives way. A cascade of filth rushes past you down the shaft. The chute is clear. You tug on the lifeline, the signal to be pulled up. As your son hauls you hand over hand back into the privy, you emerge into the cool night air, gasping, your body covered in a layer of indescribable filth. You have done it. You have performed a kind of terrible surgery on the castle's plumbing. You have faced the claustrophobic darkness and the toxic air, and you have won. The bonus payment will be enough to buy a new pig for your small holding. It is a small consolation, but in your world, it is a significant victory. The cart is full. Its contents are a semi-liquid, foul-smelling testament to your night's work. But your job is not yet over. You cannot simply dump this material anywhere. The castle's lord is a fastidious man, and the rules regarding the disposal of gong are strict. The waste must be transported a safe distance from the castle, to a designated field that the lord owns. And this is where the farmer part of your title comes into play. You and your son begin the slow, silent journey, pulling the heavy, sloshing cart out of the castle gates and along a dark, rutted track into the countryside. The cart is not perfectly watertight. It leaves a slow, dark, and fragrant trail behind it. It is for this reason that you are forbidden from using the main roads. You must take the back ways, the forgotten paths. You are a creature of the night, and your cargo is a secret that the day must not see. After a journey of about a mile, you arrive at the designated field. Here, under the pale light of the moon, you perform the final act of your nightly ritual. You tip the cart, and the great mass of waste pours out onto the ground. You then take your rake, and you spread it as evenly as possible over the fallow earth. You are not just disposing of waste, you are providing a service. This material, which is so reviled and so dangerous in the confines of the castle, is, out here, a valuable commodity. It is night soil, one of the richest and most effective fertilizers known to the medieval world. You are, in the most literal sense, returning the nutrients consumed in the Great Hall back to the earth from which they came. You are closing a great organic loop, the nitrogen, the phosphates, the organic matter. It will all be absorbed by the soil. enriching it, ensuring a bountiful harvest of wheat or barley in the coming year. A harvest that will, in turn, be ground into flour, baked into bread, and eaten by the Lord and his men, thus beginning the entire glorious cycle all over again. It's the original farm-to-table and back-again system, and you are its sole and deeply unappreciated facilitator. There is a strange, almost spiritual satisfaction in this final act. Here, in the quiet moonlit field, the filth of your work is transformed. It is no longer a source of shame and disgust, but a source of life and fertility. You are not just a cleaner of privies. You are a vital, if humble, participant in the great, endless cycle of consumption and renewal. You are a kind of alchemist, turning the base material of human waste into the gold of a good harvest. It is a profound thought, but it is not one that makes the work smell any better. Your work is done for the night. You and your son pull the now empty cart back towards your cottage. The first faint hint of dawn is beginning to soften the eastern sky. As you pass the castle, you see the first signs of life. A baker is stoking his oven. A groom is leading a horse to the well. Their day is just beginning. Yours is ending. You are a creature of the night, a reverse vampire whose work must be finished before the sun rises. Back at your cottage, the final ritual of your workday begins. The cleaning. You strip off your hardened leather work clothes, leaving them outside in the shed. You then draw bucket after bucket of cold water from your well. The first washing is just to remove the worst of the grime. The water instantly turns black. The second washing is with a harsh, lye-based soap that you make yourself. A soap that scours your skin, but is the only thing strong enough to cut through the grease and filth. You scrub yourself raw, from head to toe. It is a desperate, almost violent attempt to wash away the stain of your profession. But you can never truly wash it away. The smell, it lingers. Not on your skin, perhaps, but in your memory, in the back of your nose. It is the perfume of your life. And this stain is not just physical, it is social. You are the Gong-Farmer. Your name is synonymous with filth. In the complex social hierarchy of the castle, you are at the absolute bottom. Number. You are below the bottom. You exist in a separate category altogether. The other servants, the cooks, the grooms, the maids, will speak to you if they have to, but they will not share a cup with you. They will not sit with you at a meal. You are, in a very real sense, untouchable. This social isolation is the true price of your profession. You are paid surprisingly well. Your wages are often double or even triple that of a common labourer. Your job is so unpleasant, so undesirable, that the Lord must pay a premium to find anyone willing to do it. You are not poor. Your family has enough to eat. You have a sturdy cottage and a small plot of land where you raise a pig and some chickens. But you are an outcast. Your wealth is tainted by its source. It is gong money, and it carries a stigma that no amount of prosperity can erase. Your son will one day inherit your cottage, your tools, and your comfortable wage. But he will also inherit your loneliness. Your work is not without its strange and sometimes valuable perks. You are a treasure hunter in a river of filth. The garderobe shaft is not just a toilet, it is a vertical trash chute, a place where the castle's inhabitants dispose of anything they want to disappear, and you are the one who finds it. While emptying the pits, you have found a surprising array of lost objects. A silver spoon, dropped by a careless servant. A lady's lost earring, a small pearl that has fallen from its setting. A set of loaded dice, hastily discarded by a cheating soldier. These small treasures are an unofficial but accepted part of your income. The Lord does not care what is at the bottom of his cesspits, as long as they are emptied. You have a small wooden box where you keep your finds. You clean them meticulously, polishing the silver, washing the pearl. It is a secret secondary income, a small bonus for a job that deserves one. You are not just a cleaner, you are a kind of archaeologist, sifting through the discarded detritus of 100 different lives, from the Great Hall to the barracks. Every lost object tells a story. The dice speak of a gambling dispute. The spoon speaks of a hurried meal. The pearl speaks of a moment of vanity, a quiet tragedy of lost wealth. But you also find things that are not so valuable. The pits are a repository of secrets. You have found the small skeletal remains of unwanted animals. You have found daggers, hastily disposed of after a drunken brawl. You learn to be discreet. You do not ask questions. You are the keeper of the castle's dirtiest secrets, both literal and metaphorical. To reveal what you have found would be to invite trouble, to upset the delicate social order. Your silence is part of your job description. Your most valuable find, however, is not a physical object. It is a strange and intimate knowledge of the health of the castle. You are its unofficial doctor of digestion. From the contents of the pits, you can tell what the soldiers have been eating. You can tell if there is an outbreak of dysentery in the guest quarters. You are the first to know the secrets of the castle's gut. It is a disgusting and deeply unscientific form of knowledge, but it is knowledge nonetheless. You are a man who understands the castle from the bottom up in a way that no one else ever could. You are clean, or as clean as you can ever be. The sun is now fully risen, its warm light slanting across the floor of your small cottage. Your wife has a bowl of hot oat porridge waiting for you. This is your dinner. You eat in a weary silence. The physical toll of your work is immense. Your back is a constant dull ache from the years of heavy lifting and the awkward, stooped posture of your work. Your hands are a map of calluses, cuts and scrapes, but the greatest danger of your job is the one you cannot see. You've seen what happens to Gong-Farmers who are careless. You knew a man in a neighbouring castle who was killed by the foul airs. He went down into a pit without checking his lantern, was overcome by the gases, and was dead before anyone could pull him out. You have heard stories of men who have fallen into the castle moat while emptying their carts in the dark, and weighed down by their heavy leather clothes, have drowned. And then there is the simple, slow, and constant risk of disease. You are in daily contact with human waste, a breeding ground for every sickness imaginable. You wash your hands obsessively, a practice that most people in this era would find bizarre and eccentric. But you know that a single small cut on your finger, infected by the filth, could lead to a raging fever and a slow, agonizing death. Your work is a constant nightly dance with danger. You are not a soldier facing the clean, honourable risk of a sword or an arrow. You are a sanitation worker facing the slow, inglorious and invisible enemies of suffocation, infection and disease. It is for this reason that you are paid so well. Your salary is not just a wage, it is danger money. It is a recognition of the fact that every night, when you leave your cottage, there is a small but very real chance that you will not come back. You look at your son, who is eating his own porridge, his young face already etched with a weariness that is beyond his years. You are teaching him all the skills he will need to survive this life. You are teaching him how to read the flame of the lantern, how to tie the right knots, how to lift with his legs and not his back. You are passing on the grim, secret knowledge of your trade, the oral tradition of the Gong-Farmer. It is the most important and the most terrible inheritance you will ever give him. The meal is finished. It is time for you to sleep. You go to your small bedroom and lie down on the straw mattress. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, the world outside is alive with the sounds of a new day. But your world is one of darkness and silence. You close your eyes, the familiar aches in your body, a constant reminder of who you are. You have completed your nightly duty. You have journeyed into the castle's underworld, and you have returned. You have taken its filth and returned it to the earth. You have kept the great machine of the castle running, in your own small, foul, and absolutely essential way. You think of the lord of the castle, sleeping in his great bed, high in his stone tower. He likely has no idea who you are. He never sees you, never thinks of you, but his comfort, his health, the very ability of his fortress to function, depends on you and your silent nightly work. You are the foundation upon which their clean, ordered, and chivalrous world is built. A foundation of stinking, unseen, and back-breaking labour. The Gong-Farmer was a profound paradox of medieval life. He was untouchable, yet indispensable. He was reviled for his contact with human filth, yet he was the guardian of the community's health. He was paid a wage that gave him a comfortable life. But the very source of that wealth made it impossible for him to ever truly be a part of the society he served. He was a creature of the night, a hauler of secrets, an alchemist who turned waste into fertility. And in his silent, thankless, and unimaginably disgusting work, he performed one of the most vital and necessary functions of any civilization. He took away the things that no one else was willing to touch, and he kept the world, in the most literal sense, from drowning in its own history. The Viking discovery of Iceland. We're heading out into the cold, grey expanse of the North Atlantic, to the edge of the known world. We're here to look at the story of the Viking discovery and settlement of Iceland. We have this image of bold adventurers, master navigators guided by the sun and stars, purposefully seeking out new lands to conquer. But the brutal reality is that the discovery of Iceland was a complete and utter accident. It was a story of getting hopelessly lost, of terrible weather, of shipwreck, and of a few stubborn, anti-social rebels who were more interested in finding a place where they could be left alone than in building a new kingdom. The year is 860 AD. You are a Viking, but you are not a raider. You are a merchant. Your name is Nadot, and you are having a very bad day at the office. Your world is made of wood, wool, and water. You are a seasoned navigator from the west coast of Norway, a man whose life is a constant negotiation with the wind and the waves. Your business is not in plunder, but in trade. You are sailing to the Faroe Islands, a small, windswept archipelago in the North Atlantic that your people have been settling for the last few decades. It's a routine, if always dangerous journey, that you have made a dozen times. Your ship is not a sleek, intimidating longship. It is a nar, a fat, sturdy, and rather unglamorous cargo vessel, its open hull filled with sacks of seed grain, iron tools, and a few nervous-looking sheep. You are a master of the old ways of navigation. You have no compass, no charts, no GPS. Your map is in your head. You navigate by the sun during the day and the stars at night. You understand the subtle language of the sea, the colour of the water, the patterns of the swell, the flight of the seabirds. You know that a gannet flies no more than a day's journey from land. You know the smell of a distant shoreline on the wind. It is a science of instinct and deep, hereditary knowledge. But today, none of that matters. A storm has come out of the north, a sudden, violent tempest that has turned the grey sea into a churning cauldron of black water and white foam. Your single, square sail of striped wool has been hastily lowered, but the wind is a physical, screaming thing, tearing at the rigging. The waves are like moving mountains, lifting your small 20-man vessel to a terrifying height before dropping it into a stomach-lurching trough. You are no longer a navigator. You are a passenger, a cork tossed in a giant's washing machine. Rain and sea spray lash your face, so cold it feels like being hit with a bag of needles. For days the storm rages. You lose all sense of time, all sense of direction. The sun is a memory. The stars are a myth. You and your crew huddle under oilskins, soaked, freezing, and utterly exhausted. Your only job is to keep the ship bailed, to keep it pointed into the waves, to keep it from being swamped and sent to the bottom. You are completely and terrifyingly lost. The Faroe Islands are a tiny speck in a vast empty ocean. The chances of finding them now are almost zero. You are sailing off the edge of the world, into a blank space on the mental map of your people. All you can do is survive, and pray that the sea god, Ega, will tire of his game. Then, after what feels like an eternity, the storm breaks. The wind dies down to a stiff breeze. The waves subside into a heavy, rolling swell. And through a gap in the bruised purple clouds, a single ray of sunlight breaks through. It is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. But as the sky clears, you see something else. A sight that is both a relief and a profound mystery. On the western horizon, where there should be nothing but an endless expanse of water, there's a line of dark, jagged land. It is a coast you have never seen, a land that does not exist on any known map. You have, entirely by accident, stumbled upon a new world. You and your crew, exhausted and bewildered, alter course and sail towards it. As you get closer, you see a vast, mountainous coastline, its peaks capped with snow even in the summer. You find a sheltered fjord and drop your anchor. You and a few of your men row ashore in the ship's small boat. The silence is the first thing you notice. It is a deep, profound silence, broken only by the cry of seabirds and the gentle lapping of the waves. There are no signs of human habitation, no houses, no fields, no smoke from a hearth fire. The land is covered in a low, green carpet of birch and willow scrub. It is an empty land, a world waiting to be born. You climb a high hill to get a better view. The landscape is immense, volcanic, and utterly alien. In the distance, you see great, white glaciers creeping down from the highlands. It is a place of stark, brutal beauty. But you are a practical man. You are a merchant, not an explorer. Your cargo is meant for the Faroes, and it is already late. You have no interest in this strange, new place. You have found shelter. You have found fresh water. That is enough. As you prepare to leave, a light snow begins to fall, dusting the dark mountains with a fresh layer of white. You decide to name this new land Snayland. Snowland. It's not a very creative name, but it's accurate. You get a favourable wind, and with your navigator's instincts returning, you manage to find your way back to the familiar shores of the Faroe Islands. You have made a monumental discovery. You are the first Norseman to set foot on Iceland. But you don't see it that way. To you, it was a terrifying, costly, and deeply inconvenient detour. You have discovered a new world, but your only thought is how much it has thrown off your delivery schedule. You are the Christopher Columbus of getting hopelessly lost and being vaguely annoyed by the result. Your accidental discovery, however, does not go unnoticed. The story of Snowland spreads through the small, interconnected world of the North Atlantic. It becomes a mariner's tale, a rumour, a whisper of a large, uninhabited landmass out there in the Western Ocean. and it captures the imagination of another man, a Swedish Viking named Gardar Svavarsson. He is not a merchant but an adventurer, a man who is married into a powerful family in the Hebrides and is looking to make his own mark on the world. He decides, intentionally this time, to seek out this new land. He equips a ship and, following Nadod's rough directions, he sets sail. His journey is more purposeful, his navigation more deliberate. He finds the land, just as the rumour said, but he is a more thorough man than his predecessor. He decides to circumnavigate it. It is a long, arduous and dangerous journey. He sails for weeks, keeping the strange volcanic coastline in sight. He charts its fjords, its glaciers, its vast empty river deltas. He proves that it is not a peninsula of some larger continent, but an island, a massive, self-contained world in the middle of the ocean. During his circumnavigation, a storm forces him to take shelter in a fjord on the northern coast. While he is there, one of his men, a man named Natfari, escapes along with a male and a female slave. When Gardar is ready to leave, he cannot find them. He calls for them, searches for them, but they are gone. They have chosen the unknown wilderness of this new land over the known servitude of the old one. Gardar, like Nadod, is a practical man. He cannot wait forever. He sails away, leaving the three of them behind. They become, in a strange and forgotten way, the first, albeit unwilling, settlers of Iceland. Gardar returns to Scandinavia with a wealth of new information. He has mapped the coastline. He has confirmed it is an island. He is a man of a slightly more poetic and self-aggrandizing nature than Nadod. He names the island Gardashomi, Gardar's Isle. It's a name that has a certain ring to it, but it doesn't stick. However, his reports confirm the most important detail. The land is vast. It has good pastures in its fjords, and it is utterly, completely empty. The rumour now has a map, and a new, more ambitious kind of Viking is beginning to listen. The next man to be drawn by the siren song of this new island is a Norwegian Viking named Floki Vilgedarson. Floki is a different breed altogether. He is not a merchant who gets lost, nor a methodical explorer. He is a man of the old ways, a man who believes in magic and portents. The sagas call him Raven Floki, and for good reason. He decides to navigate to Gardar's Isle, not by the sun or the stars, but by the guidance of birds. It is a piece of ancient, almost mythological seamanship. He sets out from Norway with his family, his livestock, and 3 ravens. After a few days at sea, in the general direction of the new land, he releases the first raven. The bird flies up, circles the ship once, and then heads straight back towards Norway. Floki knows that land lies in that direction. He continues sailing west. A few days later, he releases the second raven. This one flies up, circles for a while, and then lands back on the ship's mast. Floki knows he is not yet close to any land. He continues sailing west. Finally, after several more days, he releases the third raven. This bird flies up, circles high in the air, and then sets off in a determined straight line to the northwest. Floki alters his course and follows. He's using the raven as a kind of biological guidance system, a feathered medieval GPS. And it works. After a day of sailing, he sees the dark line of a coastline on the horizon. He has found the land. It is a triumph of faith over practical navigation, a story that will be told for 1,000 years. Floki and his small group of settlers have arrived late in the summer. They find a large fjord, a place with abundant fish and what looks like good pasture land. They are so busy with fishing and exploring that they neglect the most important and most boring task of all, making hay. The summer is short, the grass is green, and the work of cutting and drying fodder for their livestock seems like a problem for another day. But in the North Atlantic, another day is often too late. The winter comes with a sudden shocking ferocity. A brutal, unrelenting cold descends on the land. The fjord freezes over. The snow piles up in immense drifts. And Floki's livestock, the cows and sheep that were supposed to be the foundation of his new life, begin to starve. There is no hay. The animals, weakened by hunger, die one by one. It is a slow, grim, and entirely preventable catastrophe. When spring finally arrives, Floki's grand colonizing venture is in ruins. He is a man defeated, not by storms or by enemies, but by his own poor planning. Bitter and disheartened, he decides to abandon the island. Before he leaves, he climbs a high mountain to survey the land. He looks out over a fjord to the north, and he sees that it is still choked with sea ice, great ghostly blue chunks of it drifting in the cold grey water. In a fit of pique, a moment of profound and bitter disappointment, he gives the land its final, lasting, and most misleading name. He calls it Iceland. It's the world's first and most successful case of negative branding, a name born of a single bad winter. He returns to Norway with nothing but a story of failure, telling everyone who will listen that the land is worthless, a frozen, inhospitable wasteland. And for a little while, the dream of settlement dies. But Floki's bad review is not the end of the story. While he was complaining about the ice, one of the men in his party had a different experience. This man had a more optimistic, or perhaps just a more observant, nature. He noted the quality of the grass, the abundance of fish, the fact that the birch trees seemed to drip with a sweet sap in the spring. He returns to Norway and tells a different story. A story of a land that is not worthless, but full of potential. A land that is harsh, yes, but also rich. A land where a man willing to work could make a new life. And this is the story that sticks. The timing is perfect. Back in Norway, a great political change is underway. A powerful king, Harald Fairhair, is systematically crushing the local chieftains and consolidating all of Norway under his own rule. He is imposing new taxes, confiscating lands, and generally making life very difficult for the proud, independent-minded farmers and local lords who have governed their own affairs for centuries. They are faced with a stark choice: submit to the king's authority or leave. And now, thanks to the contradictory reports of Raven Floki and his more cheerful companion, there is somewhere to go. And so the great settlement of Iceland begins. It is not an organised, state-sponsored colonisation. It is a great, chaotic and very personal exodus. It is a wave of political refugees, of stubborn individualists, of families who are choosing the unknown dangers of a new land over the known tyranny of the old one. They are not seeking glory or plunder. They are seeking freedom. They are the original libertarians, sailing off to found a new society based on the principle of being left alone. The first of these permanent settlers, the man who will be remembered as the father of Iceland, is a Norwegian chieftain named Ingolfur Arnason. He is not a man to be trifled with. He has been involved in a blood feud and has decided that leaving Norway is a healthier long-term career option. He and his foster brother, Hjörleifur, equip 2 ships and set sail, their families, their slaves, and their livestock all packed on board. But Ingolfur is a man of deep piety, a man who will not leave his destiny to chance. He brings with him his Undvegisula, his high seat pillars. These are the 2 great carved wooden pillars that stood on either side of his chieftain's seat in his longhouse in Norway, symbols of his authority and his family's connection to the gods. As his ship approaches the coast of Iceland, Ingolfr performs a solemn and profoundly risky act of faith. He throws his high seat pillars into the sea. He makes a vow to the gods that he will build his new farm, his new home, wherever the pillars wash ashore. It is the ultimate act of submission to divine will, a way of letting the gods choose his new home for him. It is also, from a practical standpoint, a terrible idea. He has just thrown two of the most valuable pieces of carved timber he owns into the North Atlantic. He and his foster brother make landfall on the south coast. Hjordleifr, a more practical and less pious man, simply finds a good spot and begins to build his farm. He puts his Irish slaves to work, building houses and preparing the fields. But Ingolfr is bound by his vow. He sends his own slaves out to search the coastline for his pillars. He waits, and he waits. For 3 long years, his slaves search. It is a slow, painstaking, and probably very frustrating process. Meanwhile, Hjorleifr's farm is thriving. He has a roof over his head. His fields are planted. But his lack of piety, or perhaps his brutality, is his undoing. His Irish slaves, driven to desperation, rise up, murder him and all the free men on his farm, and flee to a small, nearby island. Ingolfr, finally finding his pillars washed ashore in a bay on the southwest coast, learns of his foster brother's murder. He is a man bound by the laws of honour and blood feud. He hunts down the rebellious slaves and kills them all in a grim act of vengeance. He has fulfilled his duty to his brother, and he has fulfilled his vow to the gods. He now stands on the spot where his pillars came to rest. The bay is steaming with geothermal hot springs. He names the place Reykjavik, the Smoky Bay. He has found his home, and the capital city of Iceland has just been founded, all thanks to a blood feud, a murdered brother, and 2 pieces of divinely guided driftwood. Ingolfr's settlement marks the beginning of the Landnam, the land taking for the next 60 years. A steady stream of ships follows in his wake. They are not just from Norway, but from the Norse settlements in Scotland, Ireland, and the Hebrides. Each ship is a self-contained, mobile homestead, a floating ark carrying a single family, their dependents, their slaves, and their precious livestock. Each new arrival, a chieftain or a wealthy farmer, sails along the coast until he finds an unclaimed fjord, an empty valley that appeals to him. He then performs the ritual of claiming the land. He might light a series of fires along the boundary of his claim, or walk its perimeter with a burning torch. This is a land rush on a national scale. The sagas will record the names and the claims of over 400 of these principal settlers. They are a strange and fascinating mix of people. There are great chieftains fleeing the consolidation of power in their homelands. There are men like Ingolfr, running from blood feuds. There are stubborn, independent farmers, seeking to escape the king's taxes. It is a self-selecting group of the most restless, the most ambitious, and the most anti-authoritarian individuals in the Viking world. They are not building a kingdom. They are building a collection of fiercely independent farmsteads. There is no king in Iceland. There is no central army. The highest authority is the Althing, a great annual assembly where all the free men of the island gather to make laws and to settle disputes. It is one of the oldest parliaments in the world, a government founded on the principle of consensus among equals. They have not just found a new land, they have founded a new kind of society, a republic of Viking farmers, a commonwealth of rebels. But what was this land that they found? Ravenfloki may have been disappointed, but the Iceland that these settlers discovered was, in many ways, a paradise. At least, a Viking paradise. It was a land of immense, untouched resources. The coastal waters teemed with fish. cod, haddock, and halibut in numbers that seemed almost miraculous. The rivers were choked with salmon. The cliffs were home to vast colonies of seabirds, their eggs and meat a vital source of food. And the land itself, though volcanic, had its own strange treasures. The most important feature of this new world was the forest. When the first settlers arrived, Iceland was covered in a dense, low-lying woodland of birch and willow, from the mountains right down to the sea. For a people from the heavily deforested lands of western Norway, this was a resource of incalculable value. The wood provided the timber for their houses, their furniture, their tools. It provided the fuel for their hearth fires and their forges. This was the raw material of a new civilization. The land was also a land of birds and beasts. Great flocks of geese and ducks filled the wetlands. And most importantly, the coastal waters were home to a vast population of walruses. The walrus was a floating treasure chest. Its hide could be made into the toughest ropes and cables. Its meat was a source of food, and its tusks were ivory, a luxury good highly prized in Europe. The walrus hunt would become one of the foundations of the new Icelandic economy, the island's first and most valuable export. But the settlers, in their rush to build a new Norway, made a series of catastrophic ecological mistakes. They brought with them the animals of their old world, sheep, cattle, pigs, and horses. And these animals, let loose in a landscape that had never known large herbivores, began to eat. The sheep, in particular, were a voracious four-legged plague. They devoured the delicate birch and willow seedlings, preventing the forests from regenerating. The settlers also cut down the forests at an alarming rate, clearing land for pasture and using the wood for fuel and construction. Within a few short centuries, the great woodlands that had covered a quarter of the island were almost entirely gone. The land began to bleed. The thin volcanic topsoil, no longer held in place by the tree roots, was exposed to Iceland's ferocious wind and rain. A process of massive, irreversible soil erosion began. The settlers had found a paradise, but in their ignorance, they had already begun to destroy it. You are an old man now. You were one of the first to arrive, a young man on a ship filled with hope and livestock. You have seen this empty land fill up. You have built a farm, raised a family. You have seen the forests recede, the land grow thinner. You sit on the bench outside your longhouse, a great turf-covered structure that is warm in the winter and cool in the summer. You look out over your fjord. Your sons are out fishing. Your sheep are grazing on the green hillsides. It is a good life, a hard life, but a free one. You are a part of a great and strange story, a story that began with an accident, a storm that blew a man off course, a story that was fueled by rumour, by adventure, and finally by a desperate flight from tyranny. You and your fellow settlers were not conquerors. You were refugees. You did not come here to build an empire. You came here to build a home, a place where you could be your own master, governed by your own laws. You have succeeded. You have created a new world in your own image, a world of stubborn, independent farmsteads, a society without a king, but you have also unknowingly begun the long, slow process of wounding this new land. The story of the Viking settlements of Iceland is not a simple tale of heroic discovery. It is a complex and often brutal story of human ingenuity and human short-sightedness. It is a story of the search for freedom and of the unforeseen consequences that can follow. The Vikings who came to Iceland were not the dragon-proud raiders of popular imagination. They were farmers, families, political exiles, looking for a second chance at the edge of the world. They found an empty, pristine land, a geological infant of fire and ice, and they transformed it. They created one of the most unique and enduring societies in the medieval world, a literary and legal culture of astonishing sophistication. But they also, in their rush to tame the land, inflicted wounds upon its delicate ecosystem that have never fully healed. The story of Iceland is a profound and poignant reminder that even the most intrepid explorers are, in the end, just people, carrying with them not just their courage and their dreams, but also their appetites and their all-too-human flaws. The Great Library of Ashurbanipal in Assyria. We're journeying back to the dawn of empire, to the heart of the ancient Near East, the land of Mesopotamia. We're not here to witness a battle or a coronation, but to enter the quiet, dusty rooms of the world's first truly universal library, the Great Library of Ashurbanipal. We have this romantic image of a serene sanctuary of knowledge, a place where thoughtful scholars peacefully compiled the wisdom of the ages. But the brutal reality is that this library was not a passion project. It was an act of imperial obsession. It was a weapon of statecraft, assembled through conquest, coercion, and a systematic campaign of intellectual plunder, all orchestrated by one of the most ruthless and paradoxical kings in history. The year is 650 BC. The city of Nineveh is the magnificent, terrifying capital of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, the largest and most powerful empire the world has ever known. You are a scribe. Your hands are perpetually stained with clay, and the king has a hobby. Your life begins not with a cry, but with a character. You are born into a scribal family in the ancient city of Babylon. From your earliest moments, your world is the wedge-shaped script of cuneiform. While other children play with clay toys, you are given a lump of wet clay and a sharpened reed stylus, and you are taught to make your first mark, a single vertical wedge. Your father, a scribe in the Temple of Marduk, drills you relentlessly. Your childhood is an endless procession of signs, a dictionary of the divine, the legal, and the mundane made manifest in mud. You learn that writing is not a creative art. It is a sacred and deeply conservative science. There are hundreds of cuneiform signs to master, each with multiple phonetic and logographic meanings. You spend your youth in a scribal school, the Edaba, the tablet house. Your teacher is not a gentle mentor. He is a taskmaster who believes that knowledge can only be imparted through repetition and fear. The ear of a scribe is on his back, is a common saying, and you learn the truth of it through the sting of his cane. You spend years copying the same texts over and over, lists of kings, collections of omens, legal contracts, ancient hymns. You are not being taught to think for yourself. You are being taught to be a perfect, flawless, and entirely faithful recording device. You are becoming a living cog in the vast bureaucratic machine that runs your civilization. Your ambition is not to write a great epic, but to one day become a senior scribe, a man of status and moderate wealth, perhaps cataloguing the grain shipments in the temple warehouse. It's a respectable, if not exactly thrilling, career path. But the gods and the terrifying king of Assyria have other plans for you. The news arrives like a tremor, a rumour that quickly hardens into a horrifying certainty. The armies of the Assyrian king, Ashurbanipal, are on the march. The great city of Babylon, which had dared to rebel against his rule, is to be made an example of. The siege is short and brutal. The city's walls are breached. The Assyrian soldiers, masters of psychological warfare and organized violence, pour into the streets. What follows is a systematic, state-sanctioned campaign of destruction and plunder. But they are not just looking for gold, for statues, for slaves. They are looking for you. You are huddled in the tablet house, the library of your temple, listening to the sounds of your world being torn apart. The doors crash open, but it is not a soldier with a sword who stands there. It is a man in the fine, fringed robes of an Assyrian royal official. He is a chaperon, an agent of the king. He is not here to burn the library. He is here to confiscate it. He and his men, working with a shocking efficiency, begin to pack the thousands of clay tablets into reed baskets, lining them with straw. They are looking for specific texts, ancient epics, medical treatises, dictionaries, and above all, collections of omens. Then the official's eyes fall on you. You are young, your hand is steady, and you are fluent in the archaic Sumerian script used in the oldest religious texts. You are not a warrior. You are not a wealthy noble to be held for ransom. You are something far more valuable to his master. You are a piece of intellectual property. The official points at you. This one too, he says, his voice devoid of emotion. You're bound, not in chains, but with a quiet, bureaucratic finality. You are being deported. You are now the living, breathing spoils of war. A human resource to be exploited, not for your muscle, but for your mind. You're going to work in the king's Great Library. Your journey to Nineveh is not that of a common captive. You travel with the library, a precious cargo of captured knowledge. You are part of a long, slow-moving caravan, a procession of carts and donkeys laden with the intellectual treasures of your conquered homeland. You arrive at the city of Nineveh, and it is a vision of terrifying grandeur. It is a city built on a scale designed to awe and intimidate. Its massive walls, wide enough for a chariot to ride upon, stretch for miles. The gates are flanked by colossal stone lamassu, great winged bulls with human heads, that seem to stare into your very soul. You are taken to the royal palace, a sprawling complex of courtyards, audience halls, and administrative buildings, every wall covered in magnificent and brutally graphic stone reliefs, depicting Assyrian military victories. You see images of cities being burned, of kings being flayed alive, of long lines of captives being led away. It is the most effective and unsubtle corporate art in human history, a constant reminder that this empire is built on a foundation of absolute, merciless power. You are brought to a specific section of the palace, a series of quiet, well-lit rooms that feel strangely separate from the military bombast outside. This is your new home, your new prison, the Library of Ashurbanipal. You are introduced to the chief scribe, a man of immense power and learning who is the director of this great enterprise. He assesses you not as a prisoner, but as a new employee. He examines your handwriting, quizzes you on obscure Sumerian texts, tests your knowledge of omen literature. You pass. You're given a new set of clean robes, a place to sleep in the scribal quarters, and a daily ration of bread, beer, and sesame oil. Your life as a Babylonian is over. Your life as an Assyrian royal scribe has begun. It's the ancient world's most hostile corporate takeover, and you've just been headhunted by the conquering CEO. Your new job is to be a processor of stolen goods. The baskets of tablets from Babylon are brought to you. Your first task is triage. You must sort through the thousands of captured tablets, some of them broken, some of them ancient and crumbling, and determine what is valuable and what is not. You sit for hours, cross-legged on a reed mat, your fingers dusty with the clay of your own history. You read the colophons, the small inscriptions at the end of each tablet that identify the text, the original scribe, and its place of origin. It is a heart-wrenching task. You are cataloguing the theft of your own people's soul. This is Ashurbanipal's grand project, his obsession. He is not the first king to collect tablets, but he is the first to do so with such systematic, all-consuming passion. He has sent his agents to every corner of his vast empire, from the temples of Assyria to the ancient cities of Sumer and Akkad. His instructions to them are explicit, and copies of his letters have survived. Search for any tablets, he wrote, of which there are no copies in Assyria. If you see any tablet which might be profitable for my palace, take it and send it to me. He is not asking. He is commanding. He is using the full force of his imperial power to create a universal repository of all the knowledge in the world, a library of Congress for the Bronze Age, assembled through a policy of aggressive acquisition. Your primary mission is to create the Assyrian edition. Once a valuable text is identified, say an ancient Sumerian myth or a Babylonian medical text, your job is to copy it. But you are not just making a duplicate. You are translating it, editing it, and conforming it to the standards of the Assyrian Royal Library. You take a fresh, finely prepared tablet of wet clay, its surface as smooth as silk. You take your reed stylus, and you begin the painstaking work of transcription. You must translate the archaic Sumerian or the Babylonian dialect into the contemporary Assyrian cuneiform. You often write the original text and the translation in parallel columns, creating a bilingual edition. But you are also an editor. You might be instructed to correct the text. A Babylonian myth that gives too much credit to their patron god, Marduk, might be subtly altered to give more prominence to the Assyrian god, Ashur. The king's scholars are not just preserving knowledge, they are curating it, shaping it to fit the imperial ideology. It's a bit like being a modern movie producer, taking a classic foreign film and remaking it for a domestic audience, complete with a few helpful plot changes. The work is slow and demands an almost inhuman level of concentration. You sit for hours, your back aching, your eyes straining to read the tiny wedge-shaped characters. A single mistake can change the meaning of a sentence, a line, an entire omen. The pressure to be perfect is immense. Every tablet you produce will be reviewed by a senior scribe. An error is a sign of incompetence, a flaw that brings shame not just on you, but on the library itself. You are a human photocopier, a living, breathing translation program, your mind the interface between the ancient past and the imperial present. The library is not a single grand hall like the Library of Alexandria. It is a series of rooms, each dedicated to a different subject, a highly organized system of knowledge. Your life is governed by this system. 1 week you may be working in the room of celestial omens, a space filled with tablets that track the movements of the planets and the stars. You copy texts from the great astronomical series, the Enuma Anu Enlil, which contains thousands of omens based on celestial phenomena. If Venus disappears in the east in the month of Ajaru, you write, and is absent for 3 months, the king of Akkad will be slain. These are not works of abstract science. They are a form of state security. Ashurbanipal believed that the fate of his empire was written in the stars, in the flight of birds, in the entrails of a sacrificial sheep. The universe was a great book of divine signs, and he who could read that book could control the future. The library was his intelligence agency, his NSA. A massive data-gathering operation designed to give him a strategic advantage. He was not collecting knowledge for its own sake. He was collecting it as a weapon. The next week, you might be moved to the room of medicine. Here you copy treatises that are a strange and wonderful mixture of practical pharmacology and magical incantation. One tablet lists hundreds of medicinal plants and the ailments they can be used to treat. The next tablet, a treatment for a persistent cough, prescribes a poultice of herbs to be applied to the chest, but also the chanting of a spell to exorcise the demon of coughing. In this world, there is no distinction between science and magic. A disease is both a physical ailment and a divine punishment, and it must be fought on both fronts. Then there is the room of epics and myths. This is the literary heart of the library. Here you get to work on the great masterpieces of Mesopotamian literature. You might be tasked with creating a new, standardized copy of the Epic of Gilgamesh, the world's first great work of literature. You carefully inscribe the story of the great king who sought immortality, the tale of the great flood, the friendship with the wild man Enkidu. Even here the work is not creative. You are not an author. You are a preserver. Your job is to ensure that every word, every line, is copied with perfect fidelity. You are the guardian of a literary tradition that is already thousands of years old. And then there is the room that is the library's true bureaucratic heart, the room of dictionaries and lexical lists. The Mesopotamian scribal tradition was obsessed with organization. You spend weeks copying endless lists of words, lists of gods, lists of kings, lists of professions, of animals, of stones, of articles of clothing. You copy vast, multilingual dictionaries with words in Sumerian, Akkadian, and other languages, all arranged in neat columns. This is the intellectual scaffolding that holds the entire library together. It is mind-numbingly boring work, but it is essential. Without these lists, without these dictionaries, the ancient texts would be unreadable, the knowledge would be lost. You are a humble list maker, a creator of the world's first thesaurus, and your work is the key that unlocks the past. The physical space of the library is a marvel of ancient information science. The tablets are not just piled on the floor, they are stored on a series of clay shelves or in niches built into the walls, like a modern wine cellar. Some tablets are stored in reed baskets or wooden chests. Organization is everything. The tablets are arranged by subject, omens in one room, medical texts in another, epics in a third. It is a meticulously categorized system, a Dewey Decimal System for the cuneiform world. But how do you find anything? This is the genius of the Assyrian librarians. Each tablet has a colophon, an inscription on its lower edge which acts as its title and identification. For a multi-tablet series like the Epic of Gilgamesh, each tablet is numbered. The colophon of Tablet 1 will state, Tablet 1 of He Who Saw the Deep, and crucially, it will also include the first line of the next tablet in the series, Tablet 2. This creates a link, a primitive hyperlink, that allows a reader to follow the story from one tablet to the next in the correct order. Furthermore, the library had a catalogue. The scribes created separate catalogue tablets which listed the titles of all the works held in a particular room or a particular collection. A catalogue tablet might list a dozen different omen series, giving their titles, which was always their first line, and the number of tablets in each series. It was a table of contents for a library of stone. You are not just a copyist. You are a librarian, a cataloguer. You might spend a day just creating these index tablets, ensuring that the vast, ever-growing collection remains accessible. And there is a system of security. Ashurbanipal was obsessed with protecting his collection. Many of the tablets you create have a special curse inscribed in the colophon, a warning to any would-be book thieves. Whosoever shall carry off this tablet, you write, or shall cause it to be carried off. May Asher and Ninlil, angered and grim, cast him down and erase his name, his seed, in the land. It's the ancient world's most terrifying library find, a threat of divine retribution and the complete erasure of your existence. It is a clear statement. This knowledge belongs to the king, and to the king alone. It is a source of power, and it is not to be shared. One day, the king himself decides to visit his library. The news sends a ripple of panic and frantic activity through the scribal quarters. Ashurbanipal is not a distant ceremonial figure. He is the absolute monarch of a brutal military empire. He is also, paradoxically, a genuine scholar. Unlike most kings who were illiterate, Ashurbanipal could read and write cuneiform. He boasted of it in his inscriptions. I can read the cunning writings of Sumer and the dark Akkadian, which is hard to master. I have studied the inscriptions on stone from before the flood. He is not just a collector, he is a user of his own library. He is your most important and most terrifying patron. A flurry of cleaning and organizing precedes his arrival. The floors are swept, the tablets are straightened on their shelves. You and the other scribes put on your finest, cleanest robes. You wait in a silent, nervous line. The king enters, surrounded by a small retinue of bodyguards and his chief scribe. He is an imposing figure, his beard and hair elaborately curled and oiled, his robes heavy with gold embroidery. His eyes are sharp, intelligent, and miss nothing. He walks through the library, his chief scribe explaining the latest acquisitions. He stops at your workstation. You are currently working on a particularly difficult tablet, a collection of liver omens. This was a vital form of divination, where the priest would read the future in the marks and blemishes on the liver of a sacrificed sheep. The king picks up the tablet you are copying. He reads a line from it. If the path on the liver is forked, he reads aloud, his voice surprisingly soft. There will be a division in the army of the prince. He looks at you. And what of the gallbladder? He asks, quizzing you directly. Your heart is pounding in your chest. You are having a surprise performance review with the most powerful man on earth. You swallow and you answer, reciting the relevant omen from memory. If the gallbladder is shifted to the right, the army of the king will have a victory. The king nods, a faint, almost imperceptible smile on his lips. He is satisfied. He is a man who understands the strategic importance of knowing whether a sheep's gallbladder is leaning to the right. He is a scholar king, a warrior librarian. He sees his library not as a collection of dusty relics, but as a vital arsenal in the constant war to maintain his empire and to understand the will of the gods. He is your CEO, your commander-in-chief, and your most demanding professor, all rolled into one terrifying package. Your life in the library is one of quiet, scholarly routine, but it is a routine that takes place in the shadow of immense and very real violence. You are a non-combatant in the heart of a war machine. One day, a great procession comes through the city. It is a triumph, celebrating a recent victory over the kingdom of Elam. You and the other scribes are given a break from your work to witness the spectacle. You stand on a balcony of the palace and watch. The procession is a horrifying and magnificent display of Assyrian power. At the head of the procession walks King Ashurbanipal himself, riding in a magnificent chariot. Behind him come his soldiers, their bronze helmets and spear points glinting in the sun. And behind them come the spoils of war, carts laden with gold, silver, and precious stones, and long shuffling lines of captive peoples, their faces blank with shock and despair. But the centerpiece of this triumph is a single gruesome object, the severed head of the defeated Elamite king. is carried on a pike. Later, you will see it hanging from a tree in the palace garden, a constant rotting reminder of the price of rebellion. This is the brutal reality that underpins your quiet intellectual life. The peace and security that allows you to sit for hours copying ancient poems is paid for by this. The resources that fund the library, the food you eat, the fine clay for your tablets, the wages for the scribes, are the product of a relentless and brutal system of imperial exploitation. The knowledge you are preserving is, in a very real sense, being paid for with the blood and treasure of conquered nations. And your work is directly connected to this war machine. The day before the army marched on Elam, the king was here, in the library, with his priests. You were called upon to bring them the relevant omen texts. They spent the night searching for favourable signs, for divine sanction for the coming war. You found them a text that said, "If the army goes on campaign in the month of Shabbat, it will return with heavy spoil." This was the justification they needed. Your library is not a neutral space. It is an instrument of state, a provider of the ideological and religious justification for the empire's violence. You are a scholar, but you are a court scholar. Your work, no matter how esoteric, ultimately serves the interests of power. The end comes not with a bang, but with a whisper of fire on the horizon. The year is 612 BC. Ashurbanipal is long dead. The great Assyrian Empire, overstretched and exhausted by a century of constant warfare, is crumbling. A coalition of its enemies, the Babylonians, your own people, allied with the Medes and the Scythians, is at the gates of Nineveh. The city, once thought to be impregnable, is under siege. You are an old man now, a senior scribe, a keeper of the records. You sit in the library, the heart of an empire that is having a massive, fatal coronary. The sounds of battle, once a distant rumour, are now a constant, terrifying roar outside the palace walls. You can hear the thud of siege engines, the screams of the dying, but in the library, the routine continues. You and the other scribes keep working. You are still copying, still cataloguing. It is a desperate, almost insane act of faith in the permanence of your work. What else can you do? Your entire life has been dedicated to this place, to these texts. To abandon them would be to abandon the very meaning of your existence. Then the walls are breached. The enemy pours into the city. This is not a disciplined Assyrian conquest. This is a sack, a wild, vengeful tide of destruction. You can hear the splintering of doors, the shattering of pottery, the screams from the courtyards below. You know what is coming. They will show Nineveh the same mercy that Nineveh showed the world, which is to say, none at all. You look at the thousands of tablets, neatly arranged on their shelves, a lifetime of work, a civilization's worth of knowledge. The soldiers finally burst into the library. They are not here to read. They are here to destroy. They smash the wooden chests. They overturn the shelves. The precious clay tablets, the products of so much painstaking labour, crash to the floor, shattering into a million pieces. And then comes the fire. They set fire to the reed baskets, the wooden furniture, the papyrus scrolls that contain the library's catalogues and correspondence. The fire rages through the palace, the heat so intense that the great stone walls begin to crack. But then something miraculous happens. The fire, intended to destroy the library, instead becomes its saviour. The thousands of clay tablets, which are essentially just shaped, sun-dried mud, are caught in the inferno. The intense heat of the burning palace acts as a giant kiln. The tablets are fired, baked into hard, durable ceramic. The words, the stories, the omens, the lists, they are permanently burned into the clay. The library is destroyed, but its contents are accidentally, ironically, made eternal. The fire that consumed the Assyrian Empire also preserved its mind. You will not survive. You will be just another casualty, another forgotten scribe. But your work will endure, buried under the rubble, waiting for a future you could never have imagined. The daily life of a cowboy on a cattle drive. We're riding back to the wide-open, dusty plains of the American West. We're not here to witness a gunfight at high noon, but to join the single greatest movement of livestock in human history, the Great American Cattle Drive. We have this image of the lone, heroic cowboy, a master of his craft, a free spirit riding through a majestic landscape. But the brutal reality is that being a cowboy on a cattle drive was one of the dirtiest, most monotonous, and lowest paid jobs on the frontier. It was a life of endless hours in the saddle, of choking dust, of mortal danger, and of a diet that consisted almost entirely of beans, bacon, and really, really bad coffee. The year is 1873. The place is the South Texas brush country. You are 20 years old. You own nothing but the saddle you're sitting on, and you've just been hired to help move 3,000 angry cows 1,000 miles north. Your story doesn't begin on the open range. It begins in a thorny, snake-infested, and brutally hot corner of Texas known as the Posada. This is the roundup. For the last 2 weeks, you and a dozen other cowboys have been engaged in a chaotic, dangerous, and deeply unglamorous treasure hunt. Your treasure is the Texas Longhorn, a creature that is less a domesticated cow and more a semi-wild, ill-tempered beast with horns that can span 6 feet and a disposition to match. They have been running wild for generations, and your job is to pry them out of the dense, thorny mesquite brush. Your day is a blur of sweat, dust, and pain. You wear heavy leather chaps, not for style, but as essential armour against the wicked 2-inch thorns of the mesquite that tear at your clothes and your skin. You ride a small, tough, and equally ill-tempered cow pony that is an expert at navigating this hostile landscape. The work is a series of short, violent bursts of activity. You spot a small group of longhorns hiding in a thicket. You and another rider charge in, your voices a series of whoops and yells, your whips cracking like pistol shots. The cattle explode from the brush, and the chase is on. This is not the graceful art of herding. It is a high-speed, chaotic pursuit through a landscape designed to injure you. You gallop through the brush, dodging branches that seem to reach for your face, leaping over unseen gullies. Your focus is absolute. You are part of a team, a pincer movement designed to push the panicked cattle out of the brush and into the open, where they can be gathered with the main herd. You are not a lone hero. You are a sheepdog, and your sheep are armed with daggers on their heads and have a deep-seated hatred for your career choices. After 2 weeks of this, a vast, restless sea of cattle has been assembled. There are thousands of them, a chaotic mass of brown and white hides, clashing horns, and low, anxious moans. Now comes the work of sorting and branding. The calves must be roped, thrown, and branded with the ranch owner's mark. The air fills with the smell of burning hair and the piteous bawling of the calves. It is a necessary but brutal piece of business. You are a factory worker on a dusty, open-air assembly line of animal ownership. Finally, the herd is ready. It is a living, breathing, and very valuable mountain of beef on the hoof, and you are about to walk it to Kansas. At the edge of the great herd, the trail boss, a man named Jedediah, sets up his temporary office. He is a man in his 40s, his face a leather mask of sun and worry, his eyes narrowed to a permanent squint. He is the general of this strange, slow-moving army, and he is choosing his soldiers. He knows you're a hard worker, if a little inexperienced. He offers you the job, $30 a month and food. It's not a great wage, but it's a job. You take it. You sign on by making your mark in his ledger, a promise to stay with the herd until you reach the railhead in Dodge City. To desert the drive before then is the ultimate crime, a betrayal that will get you blacklisted from every outfit in Texas. You're now part of a small, specialized team, a company of 12 men who will be your only human contact for the next 3 months. There is Jedediah, the trail boss. He is the absolute authority. His word is law. Then there is the cook, a grizzled, foul-tempered man named Cookie, who rules his own domain, the chuck wagon, with an iron ladle. There is the horse wrangler, a younger man whose job is to look after the remuda, the herd of spare horses that is almost as important as the cattle themselves. And then there are the cowboys, the drovers. Each has a specific position in the great moving formation of the drive. The most experienced riders are at the front, the point men, who guide the lead steers and set the pace. Behind them are the swing and flank riders, who keep the great column of cattle from spreading out too wide. And then, at the very back, there is the worst, most disgusting, and most undesirable job on the entire drive. This is the job of the drag riders. And this is your job. Your role is to ride behind the entire herd, to keep the slow, the weak, and the lazy cattle moving. It's the entry-level position in this company, and it's a form of hazing. You are about to spend 3 months riding in a permanent, thick, choking cloud of dust, kicked up by 3,000 animals. The dust will get in your eyes, in your nose, in your mouth, in your food. By the end of the first day, your face will be a black mask of dirt and sweat. You will constantly smell of dust, sweat, and the ever-present pungent aroma of cow manure. But it is an essential job. The drive is only as fast as its slowest cow, and you are the man responsible for making sure that slowest cow keeps up. You take your position, pulling your bandana up over your nose. You are ready. You are about to eat more dust than any man in history. It's not the heroic start you imagined, but it's a start. The first day is a slow, controlled explosion of movement. At a signal from Jedediah, the point riders begin to move the lead steers forward. A great, low ripple of sound and motion spreads through the herd. It is the sound of 6,000 hooves, of clashing horns, of 1,000 low, anxious moans. The great river of cattle begins to flow. Your life, for the next 1,000 miles, will be governed by the pace of this river. And that pace is slow. A good day is 15 miles. A bad day might be 5. You are not a galloping adventurer. You are a slow-moving traffic warden. Your entire universe shrunk to the hairy, swaying backsides of the cattle in front of you. Your job as a drag rider is one of endless, monotonous frustration. You are constantly yelling, whistling, cracking your whip. Not to hit the cattle, but to make a noise that urges them forward. You have 12 different calls, a whole vocabulary of sounds to keep the laggards moving. You become an expert in the psychology of the lazy bovine. You know which steer needs a sharp yell, and which needs a gentle, constant pressure. It's like being a very frustrated and very dusty kindergarten teacher. The sun is your primary enemy. There is no shade on the open prairie. It beats down relentlessly, from the moment it rises to the moment it sets. Your hat is not a fashion accessory. It is an essential piece of survival equipment. Your world is a palette of brown and blue, the brown of the dusty earth and the endless, aching blue of the sky. The landscape is immense, beautiful, and after the first 3 days, incredibly boring. You see the same rolling hills, the same sparse grasslands, hour after hour, day after day. The romance of the open range is quickly replaced by a profound, soul-crushing monotony. You do not talk much. The man riding drag with you is a silent older cowboy who seems to communicate entirely through grunts. And besides, the constant noise of the herd makes conversation difficult. You are alone with your thoughts, and your thoughts are mostly about how much your body hurts. Your thighs ache from the constant friction against the saddle. Your back is a dull, persistent fire, and your throat is a desert of dust. Water is strictly rationed. You have one canteen, and it has to last you the entire day. The water is warm, tastes of tin, and is the most delicious thing you have ever tasted. You are learning the first and most important lesson of the trail. It is not an adventure. It is a job. A long, slow, uncomfortable, and very, very dusty job. The end of the day is marked not by a clock, but by the position of the sun. As it begins to dip towards the western horizon, Jedediah, the trail boss, rides ahead to find a suitable spot to camp for the night. He is looking for a place with 3 things: water, grass, and wood. Water for the men and the animals, grass for the cattle to graze on, and wood, or buffalo chips, if there are no trees, for the cook's fire. Once he has found the spot, a new rhythm begins. The great herd is brought to a halt and allowed to spread out and graze. And the center of your new temporary universe is established. The chuck wagon. The chuck wagon is a miracle of frontier engineering. It is your kitchen, your pantry, your pharmacy, and your social club, all on 4 wheels. It is presided over by Cookie, a man whose authority in camp is second only to the trail boss. You do not mess with the cook. Ever. He has been driving the wagon all day, and while you have been eating dust, he has been preparing your only comfort in this world: dinner. A strict etiquette governs the area around the chuck wagon. You do not ride your horse too close, for fear of kicking up dust into the food. You do not use the coffee cup you have been issued for anything other than coffee. And you always, always compliment the cook, even if the food tastes like boiled leather. And the food is a testament to the virtues of repetition. Every single night you eat the same thing. Beans, often called prairie strawberries, bacon or sowbelly, and sourdough biscuits baked in a heavy Dutch oven buried in the coals. And coffee. The coffee is the lifeblood of the drive. It is made in a huge blackened pot that is never, ever washed. Cookie just adds new grounds and water to the old ones. The result is a thick, black, brutally strong liquid that could probably dissolve a horseshoe. It is bitter, it is gritty, and it is the most wonderful thing you have ever tasted. You and the other cowboys line up, tin plate in hand, as Cookie slops a ladle full of beans and a piece of bacon onto your plate. You take your meal, and you find a spot on the ground, your saddle for a backrest. This is the first moment of rest you've had in 14 hours. The conversations are quiet, muted by exhaustion. You talk about the cattle, about the state of the trail ahead. You clean your plate with a biscuit, no washing up required, and you hand it back to the cook. The rules are simple. The food is free, but your right to complain has been severely curtailed. In this world, the man who controls the coffee pot is king. As darkness falls, the work is not yet over. The great herd has settled down for the night, a vast, dark, breathing sea of cattle. But they are a nervous sea. A single, unexpected sound, the howl of a coyote, a crack of lightning, can send them into a blind, stampeding panic. The herd must be guarded, all night, every night. This is the night watch. You and the other cowboys are divided into shifts. Your shift is from midnight to 2 in the morning. After a few precious hours of sleep, you are woken by a gentle nudge of a boot. It's your turn. You saddle a fresh horse, one of the special night horses that is chosen for its calm temperament and its good night vision. You ride out from the small circle of the campfire's light into the immense, profound darkness of the prairie. The world is transformed. The sky is a vast, glittering dome of stars, so bright and so close they seem to touch the ground. The only sounds are the gentle sigh of the wind in the grass, the chirping of crickets, and the soft, rhythmic sounds of the sleeping herd, the gentle chewing of cud, the occasional low moan, the rustle of their bodies. Oh. Your job is to circle the herd, a slow, constant, clockwise patrol. You are a human fence, a living wall of calm. You are not just a guard, you are a source of comfort. And your most important tool is your voice. You begin to sing. You are not a performer. Your voice is probably terrible. But you sing a low, monotonous and continuous song. It is a lullaby for 3,000 half-wild animals. The sound of your voice, a constant human presence in the darkness, soothes them. It lets them know that a guardian is watching, that all is well. Any song will do, as long as it has a gentle, repetitive rhythm. You sing about your home, about a girl you once knew, about the stars. This is the most iconic, the most romanticized part of a cowboy's life. And in the deep, silent stillness of the prairie night, you can almost believe the myth. You are the lone sentinel, the guardian of the herd, a solitary figure under a vast, beautiful sky. But it is also a job of immense tension. You are constantly listening, every sense alert. You listen for any change in the rhythm of the herd's breathing, for any sign of restlessness. You watch for the glint of a predator's eyes in the darkness. You are a thread of calm, holding back a potential avalanche of panic. For 2 hours, you are the only thing standing between order and 1,000 tons of stampeding chaos. The journey north is a series of long, monotonous days punctuated by moments of sheer terror. And the greatest of these terrors is the river crossing. The great rivers of the plains, the Red, the Canadian, the Cimarron, are major and very dangerous obstacles. They are wide, their currents are strong, and their banks are often steep and muddy. And you have to persuade 3,000 cattle, animals that are not natural swimmers, to plunge into the water. The process is one of controlled, calculated violence. The trail boss finds the best possible crossing point. The chuck wagon goes first, its contents carefully stowed, its canvas cover tied down. The cook, his face a mask of grim determination, urges his mule team into the churning water. Then, it is the cattle's turn. The lead steers, the vaca de guia, are the key. They are usually the most sensible and steady animals in the herd. The point riders must force them into the water. It is a battle of wills. The steers will balk. They will turn back. The cowboys must yell. They must crack their whips. Sometimes they even have to jump into the water themselves to guide them. Once the lead steers are in, the rest of the herd, with the blind trust of a mob, will usually follow. And the river becomes a chaotic, terrifying mass of swimming cattle. A great, wide stream of heads and horns, their eyes wide with panic, their lowing a sound of pure terror. Your job is to be in the water with them. You ride your horse alongside the swimming herd, a flank rider on this aquatic drive. You must keep the cattle pointed towards the opposite bank. You must prevent them from turning back, or from being swept downstream. The water is cold and treacherous. There are unseen currents, submerged logs. Your horse is swimming, its movements powerful but unsteady. Your greatest fear is your horse stumbling, or being gored by the horns of a panicked steer. If you are unhorsed, your heavy leather chaps and boots will drag you under in seconds. Drowning was one of the most common causes of death for a cowboy on the trail. You are not a heroic figure on a noble steed. You are a wet, cold, and terrified man trying to keep 1,000 panicked animals from committing mass suicide, while simultaneously trying not to drown yourself. It is a moment of pure, adrenaline-fueled chaos. Finally, the lead steers find their footing on the far bank, and the great, dripping, exhausted herd begins to pull itself from the water. You have made it. You have lost a few head, but the herd is across. But the river is not your only enemy. The sky is just as dangerous. One afternoon, you notice a change in the air. The endless blue sky of the prairie is being consumed by a dark, bruised-looking mass of clouds rolling in from the northwest. The temperature drops, the wind picks up, and then you hear it. A low, distant rumble. A thunderstorm is coming, and with it, the cowboy's greatest nightmare, the stampede. Jedediah, the trail boss, gives a series of sharp, urgent commands. The herd must be milled. You and the other cowboys begin to ride in a tight circle around the restless, nervous cattle, forcing them into a great, slow-moving spiral. This is a defensive posture, designed to prevent a straight-ahead panic. The sky grows darker. A flash of lightning illuminates the scene in a stark, ghostly white, followed a second later by a deafening crack of thunder. And that is all it takes. A single steer, then a dozen, then 100, then the entire herd explodes into motion. It is not a sound. It is a physical force, a deafening, earth-shaking roar of 1,000 tons of bone and muscle and blind panic. This is the estampidaso. Your horse, trained for this moment, leaps into a gallop without any command from you. Your job is not to stop the stampede. That is impossible. Your job is to get to the front, to the head of this terrifying living avalanche, and to turn it. You ride like a man possessed. You are not riding on the ground. You are riding through a forest of clashing horns and thundering hooves. A single misstep, a single fall, and you will be a red smear on the prairie floor. You and the point riders reach the front of the herd. You are trying to turn the lead steers, to force them into a great circling run that will eventually spiral in on itself and exhaust the herd's momentum. You are firing your pistol into the air, not to shoot anything, but to create another sound, another distraction, to get the leaders to turn their heads. The rain is coming down in a blinding sheet. The lightning is continuous. It is a scene from hell, a chaotic, terrifying, high-speed ballet of desperation. For what feels like an eternity, you ride on the very edge of death. Slowly, agonizingly, the great circle begins to form. The momentum slows. The roar subsides to a panicked rumble, then to a collection of individual, exhausted moans. The stampede is over. You are soaked. You are shaking. And you are alive. After nearly 3 months on the trail, you see a change in the landscape. The open prairie begins to give way to signs of civilization. You see farmhouses, you see fields of wheat, and then, one afternoon, you see it on the horizon. A cluster of low wooden buildings and the unmistakable beautiful black plume of smoke from a railroad engine. You have arrived. This is Dodge City, Kansas, one of the great roaring cow towns, the end of the trail. The last few miles are a slow, triumphant procession. The townspeople come out to watch the arrival of the great herd, the first of the season. The cattle are driven to the sprawling stockyards next to the railroad tracks, where they are penned. Your job is done. The sense of relief is a physical thing, a great heavy weight lifting from your shoulders. You have made it. You have delivered your cargo. You and the other cowboys ride into town, and Dodge City is a sight to behold. It is a raw, chaotic, and glorious explosion of noise and life. The main street is lined with saloons, gambling halls, and dance halls, their doors thrown open, the sound of tinny pianos and raucous laughter spilling out into the dusty street. Your first stop is not the saloon, it is the bathhouse. For the first time in 3 months, you submerge yourself in a tub of hot water. It is a moment of pure religious ecstasy. You scrub away a literal layer of Texas, the accumulated grime and sweat of 1,000 miles. You then go to the barber for a shave and a haircut. Finally, you go to the general store and you buy a new set of clothes, a new shirt, new pants, maybe even a new hat. You are no longer a dusty, trail-worn creature. You are a civilized man again. Or at least you look like one. Then comes the most important moment of all, payday. Jedediah, the trail boss, pays you your wages, $90, in a combination of cash and gold coin. It feels like a fortune, a king's ransom for a man who has had nothing in his pocket but a jackknife for 3 months. And now, it is time to spend it. You and the other cowboys descend on the town. You have a steak, a real steak, in a restaurant. The first meat you've had in months that wasn't boiled or fried over a campfire. And then, you head to the saloons. The whiskey is terrible, but it's not made in a dirty coffee pot. The piano is probably out of tune, but it's a sound of civilization. You drink, you gamble, you celebrate the simple, glorious fact that you are alive and you have money in your pocket. Within 48 hours, most of that money is gone, lost at the faro table or spent on overpriced drinks. You are broke again. The cycle is complete. You are an old man now. Your back is a permanent, painful curve from a lifetime in the saddle. Your hands are gnarled. Your face a roadmap of sun and wind. You sit on the porch of a small ranch house, a house you were finally able to afford after 20 years on the trail. The great trail drives are over now. The railroads have pushed south into Texas, and the open range has been carved up and fenced in with barbed wire. The era of the great cowboy, your era, has passed into history. You look out over the quiet, fenced pastures. It is a tamer world, a safer world. You listen as your grandson reads to you from a book, a dime novel with a lurid cover depicting a heroic cowboy, his pistols blazing, saving a beautiful woman from bandits. You almost laugh. The man on that cover bears no resemblance to the life you knew. He is not covered in dust. He does not smell of cow. He does not seem to have an aching back or a profound sense of boredom. The life you lived was not a life of romance and adventure. It was a life of hard, monotonous, and dangerous labour. It was a job performed by young, tough, and often desperate men for low wages and little glory. You were a migrant worker on horseback, a vital but ultimately disposable cog in the great booming machine of the American beef industry. You were not a hero, you were a labourer. The great American cowboy was a paradox. He was a symbol of freedom and rugged individualism, yet his life was one of rigid discipline and communal effort. His work was brutal and unglamorous, yet it has become the foundation for America's most enduring and romantic myth. He was a man who lived a life of profound hardship, a life that was short-lived, spanning only a few brief decades after the Civil War. But in that short time, he carved a path across the continent, not with a sword, but with the slow, steady, and relentless movement of 1 million head of cattle. And in doing so, he became something more than a man. He became a legend that is, like the open range itself, a beautiful, magnificent, and almost entirely imaginary landscape.